Well, he's been an NFL Coach of the Year and a Super Bowl winning coach. His coaching tree is already magnificent. Sean McVay, Rams head coach, is joined. There he is. There's Sean McVay.
Hey.
How you doing?
How we doing?
I'm doing great.
I'm doing good.
So
Can't complain. We're just getting ready for Monday night now.
Yeah. So I have to ask you a question. This is my big question. I don't know the answer to this, and I'm fascinated by this question. And I want you to take my audience a little behind the scenes. You play Seattle. It's a rough first half. You're struggling to run the ball. It's road. It's loud. It's tough. And nothing's quite, you don't get your footing under you. So it takes you about 2 minutes to get into the locker room. Helmet off, guys get something. And you get about 7-8 minutes to get it right. And then you come out in the second half. You're inspired. You make defensive plays. You're getting your footing. You're running the ball. What did you say, or what did you adjust? Because you look like a different team. Sean, how much can you do at half? Whatever you did worked. What can you do, and what did you do against Seattle?
Yeah, I think, when you look at it, Colin, it's a tremendous credit to our players. Obviously, we put ourselves in that situation by a lot of uncharacteristic errors, jumping off sides, giving them opportunities for free plays, losing our poise where we lose one of our best players. And there were some things structurally that they were doing defensively that we weren't really putting our players in favorable spots. So you just address the truth. You say, here's what's going on. We're not going to beat ourselves. We get the possession coming out of the half. Let's continue to do the things that are in alignment with playing quality football. And our offense goes right down the field, makes it a 13-10 game. Defense gets a stop. We would have loved to have punched it in for a touchdown, but 3 series later, it's 13-13 with 2 offensive possessions and 1 defensive possession. And we did some things that were uncharacteristic, but I do think this is a resilient group. They're mentally tough. They stay in the fight. And in 8 weeks, we've had a lot of different experiences that are reflective of that.
Listen, everybody misses on draft picks, but you guys have done, I'm watching your safeties. Your 3rd-round pick has a pick 6, the kid from Tennessee's undrafted. You guys have hit on a lot of Puka Nacua 5th round. We all know Stafford's good. There's certain guys you can see. How long does it take you? Jared Verse, I watched him at college. I watched him the first game. I'm like, that guy's going to be a problem. That guy, I can figure that one out. But like Puka Nacua or McCullough, the safety, how many practices, Sean, do you need to turn to Les Snead and go, oh, boy, we got baller here. We may have found a gem here.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's the way these guys carry themselves. And then obviously there's the evaluation on the field. But I think it's also having a vision. Les and his group and working in collaboration with our coaching staff. I think there's a vision when you onboard these guys, whether it be draft picks or even some of these undrafted free agents. But, you talk about a guy like Jalen McCullough that has 4 interceptions as an undrafted free agent out of Tennessee. He just had a demeanor about himself where he was a man. There was a prototype in some of these guys that we wanted to onboard. We had a real vision for Puka. Now, if you said, did I know he would be that good, we would have used a lot earlier pick on him. But there was a vision, and then there's a mental and there's a physical toughness, and there's just a competitiveness that these guys have in the most important moments. And that's what we want to continue to do. I think when you look at the, just what a cyclical league this is, tough people last in this league, tough players, and just tough people in general, and those are the kinds of guys we want to onboard.
Now, you're a very young defense. It's obvious you and Les sat down a couple years. You knew Aaron Donald. It was getting close to the end, so you started using a lot of your top picks defense. You haven't missed on any. They're all good. They're just levels of very good. When you have a young defense, they're going to make more mistakes. They're kids. They're 23, 24 years old. As a coach, do you bake that in? Are there things you won't ask a young defense to do? Do you coach 24-year-old defensive players different than you coach an Aaron Donald or when you go get a Von Miller? How does it affect your coach? Because your defense, it leads the league in sacks by all, rookies and young players, but they're all kids. They're getting better every week. How do you coach them differently?
Yeah, I think you want to understand what can they handle. And really, regardless of whether that's pros that have been playing for a while, whether that's these rookies, second-year players, what's their capacity? What can they handle? And then in a lot of instances, it's a race to maturity. And I think a lot of these guys are meeting that. And you continue to learn, sometimes trial by error. I do think that we've done a great job. Chris Shula deserves a ton of credit, Colin, for the identity that I think we're starting to play with. We're not perfect by any stretch, but I think there's a confidence and these guys just keep swinging. In a lot of instances, what I've been really impressed with when we've been on a 3-game win streak, there's been some instances where the defense has had to get stops, and offensively we're trying to get things going, but I never sense any sort of frustration from those guys. They just go out, they make sudden change stops. They just continue to play. They make the offense snap it one more time, and I love working with this group.
I had Pete Carroll on once, and I said, he totally disagreed. I said, Pete, I want aggressive quarterbacks. If a guy's throwing 32 times and I get a pick every week, if he's taking shots down the field, I'm okay with it. Now, Pete's a defensive coach. He sees the world differently. But one of the things I like about Stafford, and Matt's brilliant, but Matt, I don't think it's reckless. I just think Matt takes risks, and he's comfortable with them. But you have to be comfortable with them. Matt is very unique in that he forgets his interceptions. He has a short memory, doesn't seem to care much. It's very Andrew Luck had that. What are there ever any times with Matt you have a lead, you have something, and you say, hey, we may bring it back down, or you just trust him implicitly at any point in the game?
Oh, there's total trust, but there's a great rapport that exists. I think one of the best things you mentioned is if the mistake occurs, which is inevitable playing the quarterback position, he's got a no-flinch mindset, and he's ready to come back and be aggressive but smart. But there's opportunities, and I think he understands based on the intent of the play calls. When we got that ball back in overtime,
yep.
We go play action, we go keeper, run, keeper, and he could feel the aggressiveness, and really it's like, hey, man, go win this game. Let's go end this. Let's have that mindset and mentality, and this guy that's one of his best traits. But there is a flow to the feel of games. You look at the Raiders a couple weeks ago, our defense had control. Their offense was turning it over. We were a little bit more conservative. And so I thought he had a good feel for that. But that's what you love. If you have to be able to rein it back based on how we want to be able to play the game and ultimately come away with the win. But that aggressive nature, that fearlessness, that ability to be able to move on from one play to the next, that's one of the things I think that separates the greats. And he certainly is one of them.
We had an election yesterday, and I always think about this. You have so much diversity in your locker room. There may not be bosses in America that have a more diverse workforce than NFL coaches. Young, old, black, white. It doesn't matter. Simone, you have so many different people. Sean, we've gone through things culturally. We see stuff. After a night like last night, do you address it? Not. I mean, you have grown-ups in your locker room. Some of these guys have never lived in California. They're from Florida. Stuff's happening. You've navigated crisis, injuries, cultural changes. Do you address it? Do you address it privately, publicly? How does a guy like you, who is really the face of the franchise, in these big moments with all these unique personalities, do you address it, or do you just let it play out?
I think you want to have a pulse of what the reactions are. And if there's guys that want to be able to talk about it, you want to give guys a voice. I think being able to listen and then be able to react accordingly. You don't want to be unequipped to handling different situations, but I know that it's about listening, learning, and then you're able to lead. And so I think you always want to be able to understand whatever it is that you're navigating through. Try to really see it through an empathetic lens. And if it is something that guys want to be able to discuss, I'd like to think there's an open forum. But having a temperature and a pulse for the vibe of your building, whether that be players, coaches, staff, whatever it might be, if there is something, I think you got to be able to meet the truth head on. You can't be afraid of some of those conversations where you need to be able to have honesty, but also the ability for guys to be able to get things off their chest. And that'll never change regardless of whatever that is that we're navigating or whatever's going on in the real world that's outside of the framework of just focusing on football.
You have really unique relationships. Sean McVay, for our radio audience, you have very unique relationships with coaches. Your coaching tree, I'm looking at it today. It's like half of these guys are my favorite guys in the league. I think Kevin O'Connell's brilliant. LaFleur's terrific. And they're all different personalities, but I like all. Raheem Morris, I thought, was a great pick by Atlanta. I think he's a defensive coach who has an offensive sensibility. It's weird. You kind of got to – people know the Sean McVay secrets when they coach under you. Is it weird to coach against guys that know your playbook, they know your personality, they know your risk tolerance? Do you like facing former assistants, or do you just think all week, oh, this is the worst?
Yeah, I think it's a blessing. I think we've had a lot of guys that have come through here that have influenced me and our building in a positive way and then gone on to do great things, whether that's as coordinators or head coaches. And so it's a challenge, being able to kind of onboard as many different people, but you attract quality people. I don't know that you really think about it that way as much as when you're in the right mindset, you're saying, what a cool thing this is to be able to see people you love and care about that have positively influenced you go do their thing elsewhere. And all those guys you mentioned, really happy for them. We've happened to play a couple of those guys. We don't play the Falcons this year, but it is strange. But, once the game's kicked off, it's about focusing on our team versus their team and trying to see if we can come away with the result we're hunting up.
Finally, you have a great energy. And it's a long season. I mean, it's long. It is so long. Do you ever get up? This will be the final question. Is there ever a moment with your new family? Do you ever want to call Les up and say, Les, I just need to take Wednesday off? Or do you ever do this? Do you ever go, guys, you go to Stafford, you go to Cooper Kupp. Do you ever just go, guys, I feel it. This team's tired. How do you measure that? I mean, the NFL adds another week. It just feels like it's a lot. How do you address that when you sense a fatigue?
Yeah, I think being able to ask questions. Reggie Scott, I lean on him heavily, who oversees our sports performance department. You ask the players questions. Shoot, I know I'm feeling it a lot. These games, but you do, the important thing is I think I have gotten better, and we've gotten better collectively as a staff, is saying, okay, working all these hours, if you're not sharp, if you're not fresh, if you don't have the right vibe and energy for the players, then you're wasting your time. And so paying more attention to getting your rest and understanding the things when you're like, all right, man, I'm irritable. I'm not the most fun guy to be around. Let's go get a workout in, or let's make sure you get some rest tonight and get out of the office a little bit earlier. I think I've improved. By no means have I arrived in that arena, but it is a long grind, but you always want to remember, like my man Andrew Whitworth said, it's always a blessing, never a burden.
Yeah, well, I love him. Rams host the Dolphins. Just loved having you on the show. Haven't had you on yet. I'm such an admirer. I really appreciate you taking 10, 20 minutes for us today, Coach.
Well, feelings are mutual. I appreciate you having me on, Colin.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.